Shalom, everyone. Today I want to take a look at what it means not to wrestle against flesh and blood, but the fact that we wrestle against the principality with the power, the world rulers of darkness of this age. Father, I just ask Yah that you would give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to turn towards you, that the trickery, the craftiness, the schemes of the wicked one, Yah, we would recognize them immediately, Father. They would be thwarted in their steps, Yah. That we might be a people, a children, Father, of shalom, walking in the mastery, Father, of your shalom. In your name, Yah, who came to rescue us. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So I want to start out today in Ephesians chapter 6. And we are going to read verses 10 through 20. Ephesians 6, 10 through 20. And we're simply going to, for the most part, read it here. For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the Master and in the mightiness, in the intimate knowledge, in knowing your weapon, from which you are able to keep yourself in line, which is strength in the Master. Put on the complete armor of Elohim, for you to have power, so that you are able to stand against the schemes, against the craftiness, against the wickedness of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. It's a tough one. But against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual, non-carnal, of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand, stand then, having girded your waist with truth. Everything from the El to the Ta in its proper order. And having put on the breastplate of righteousness, walk in that. Guard your heart. And having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace, walk in the peace and the shalom and the mastery of shalom that only comes from Yahusha. It's a shalom that the world cannot give. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. No matter what you say to me, hey, watch this, I'm going to do this, and walk in the light of Yah and do what he said. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set-apart ones. That's our duty. We need to be looking out for each other with meekness and respect. Also for me, that a word might be given to me in the opening of my mouth, to be bold in making known the secret of the good news, for which I am an envoy in chains, that in it I might speak boldly as I should speak. So I want to start out by taking a look at verses 11 and 12. Well, that's where we're going to look in particular. Go back and we'll read it one more time. Put on the complete armor of Elohim, for you to have power, so that you are able to stand against the schemes, the craftiness, the plan, the design, the moves of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. So we're going to start with this word principalities. And we can see it's on the second row here. Strong's, if you can see my mouse, I hope so. The second one down. G746, or K. From G756, properly abstract. We might have to switch to the PowerPoint. A commencement or concrete, a commencement or concrete, a chief in various applications of order, time, place, or rank. When we trace it back, we trace it back to Genesis 10:10, and we see there in Genesis 10:10 beginning is G746, and it reads as such. And the beginning of his kingdom interesting. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Now we see the English word beginning there, but we're going to see in the definition that this is more than just a beginning. It can be just a beginning, but when we think about Nimrod, who it is speaking of here, he was the head of his kingdom. He was the authority over his kingdom. Was it the beginning of his kingdoms? Okay. But that does not negate the fact that he was the head of his kingdom. So, looking in the Strongs at the H7225, and on this one, we're going to go to the actual Strongs. I forgot to change this. I knew this was wrong. And we're going to look it up here in the eSword. If you're not familiar with the eSword, it's a great tool. I highly encourage you to start out with all the books first. And we see that in the Strongs, it reads as such. From the same as H7218, the first in place, time, order, rank, specifically a first fruit. So it's not just the first in place. It can be the first in time, the first in order, the top dog of the rank, the very first ranking at the top. So we see the definition lines up quite similarly with that which we find in the Greek. Not that that always happens, but in this case it does. So when we go to the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, we see it's at 1458 DN4. And down here at the bottom, kind of in a more of a gray color, we see it's arashit, the beginning, ahead of a space, such as the head of a river, or time, such as an event. We see that that's the feminine of this word, and we see here the concrete is the head. We see it came from the same as H7218, which is here in the end line. Head, the top of the body, a person in authority, a role of a leader, the top, beginning, or first of something. So we're seeing, pretty much the same definition, and this root line runs together. We'll leave it at that. It runs together. Because one's a feminine, they all run together in these root lines. Same definitions. So at the 1458, we have a resh and a shin. The action is to inherit. The concrete is head. The pictograph resh is a picture of a head. The head of the tribe chief, our family father, is passed from generation to generation. The head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family. The head of a person, place, thing, or time. So that's the word that we're looking at. This principality being the head. And he's not the head, but, well, let's continue on and see. So he wants to be the head. It's something we're probably all familiar with. Isaiah 14, 1 to 24. So here we're going to look at what Yah has said to Yeshua, and we're going to see a picture of the king of Babel, and then we're going to see a picture of who's behind him. Because Yah has compassion on Jacob, and shall again choose Yisrael. Yah is determining the inheritor. Yah is determining who his bride will be. They will come from Yisrael, those who will rule with El, because they have obeyed El. Because they did not fall for the trickery, the craftiness, the schemes, the wiles of the enemy. And give them rest in their own land. And strangers shall join them, and they shall cling to the house of Jacob. And people shall take them and bring them to their own place, and the house of Yisrael shall possess them for servants, and female servants in the land of Yah. And they shall make captives of their captors, and rule over their oppressors. I'm reminded of the verse where the head and not the tail. And it shall be in the day Yah gives you rest from your sorrow, and from your trouble, and the hard service in which you were made to serve, because it's not easy out there in Babylon, that you shall take up this proverb against the sovereign of Babel, and say, how the oppressor has ceased, the gold has ceased. That day will come. Yah has broken the staff of the wrong, the scepter of the rulers. He who struck the people in wrath with ceaseless blows, he who ruled the nations in displeasure, is persecuted, and no one restrains. All the earth is at rest and at peace. They shall break forth into singing. Well, won't that be a joyous day? Even the cypress trees rejoice over you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were cut down, no woodcutter has come up against us. Sheol from beneath is excited about you, to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the sovereigns of the nations. All of them respond and say to you, have you also become weak as we? Have you become like us? The ruler of Babylon is not going to stand before El. Physical sense, those that are of the anti-Messiah spirit. Spiritual sense, he who brings forth the anti-Messiah spirit. Your arrogance has been brought down to Sheol. We need to humble ourselves. And the sound of your stringed instruments. The maggot is spread under you, and worms cover you. And now we really kind of see who is behind the king of Babylon. Because we're not fighting flesh and blood. It's what's behind the flesh and blood that's working in the flesh and blood. We don't choose who Yah will break the yoke from. We don't choose who will come into the yoke of Yah. We're not fighting flesh and blood. We are fighting the principality with the authorities and the army of this age. Continuing on. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, son of the morning. Some scriptures read Lucifer there. And there's been argument out there. This is not a noun, this is a verb. Okay, so it's about shining forth through words and through actions. Or the seemingly, at this point, shining forth through words and through actions. Because even his messengers come as angels of light. A verb and a mindset did not go walking up among the sons of men to Elohim and say, I'm a mindset, can I go try Job? I'm a verb, can I go try Job? Even though you got him hedged in. In Hebrew, even if it's a noun, it's about the action that lies behind it. And so we may see quote unquote this Hebrew number in the scriptures one time. But again, as these root lines come together, it's really about the action that is behind it. We see, well, we'll continue on and we'll see if we see more. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid nations low. For you have said in your heart, he has said as his own authority, he's his own authority inside. Let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El. And let me sit in the mount of appointment on the sides of the north. We are supposed to go to the mount of appointment. Yah is supposed to sit on the mount of appointment, the mount of Mayod, where the Moedim, the final Moedim, is going to take place. He just doesn't want to be like Yah. He wants to be Yah. And he wants to rule all that he can rule. And he wants to kill us in the process. Let me go up to the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the sides of the pit. To those who see you stare at you and ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook reins? And we see the word man there, and I understand that. Let's go look at it. We're in Isaiah 14, 16. Is this the man? Is this the Ish? So we're missing the noon there because the enemy has somehow removed, well, not somehow, he just did it, somehow removed the noon, the seed, from the man, because, well, that's where the seed comes from. We see Yah refers to himself as an Ish twice, once in Hosea and once, I believe, it is in Numbers. So just because we see this word man here, Yah's not a man. He's an Ish. He's not a man that he should lie, and he's not a son of Adam that he should relent. I might have those Ish might be in the other verse, and son of Adam might be in the, with the word above it, I can't remember. But there's a couple times he refers to himself as an Ish. So this doesn't mean this is a man that is flesh and blood that's walking around on the earth. It does not mean that. Verse 17, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who would not open the house of his prisoners. How many people are captive to Babylon? How many people are captive to the anti-Messiah spirit of Babylon? How many are captive to the anti-Messiah spirit of Babylon, yet keeping bits and parts and pieces of the Torah, of the instructions, of the commands? All of the sovereigns of the nations, all of them were laid in esteem, everyone in his own house. But you have been thrown down from your burial site like an abominable branch, like the garment of those who are killed, thrust through with the sword. The sword of the word, that which in its perfect order is going to take everything out. And I know some of this is past tense. I get it. Some of it should be future tense. Some of it is both. Who go down to the stones of the pit like a trampled corpse. You are not joined with them in the burial place, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people. Let the seed of evildoers never be mentioned, never be called to the assembly of the righteous. Prepare, 24. Prepare his children for slaughter because of the crookednesses of their fathers. Not that they're dying for not that they're going to be responsible for their father's sins, but that's what they've been trained up to do. Now there is in Leviticus 26 that we should be confessing and repenting for the sins of our fathers, of the generations before. But these ones were trained in it. How many of our own children did we train in it? And they're on the road to the slaughter because of it. Lest they rise up and possess the land and fill the face of the world with cities. And I shall rise up against them, declares Yah Zavot, Yah of hosts, Yah of the divisions, Yah of the armies, of his army, and shall cut off from Babel the name and remnant and offspring and descendant, declares Yah. One day that will be permanent. It will be no more. Most of us have read that in Revelation. This is an allusion to that. And I shall make it a possession for the porcupine in the marshes of muddy water, and shall sweep it with the broom of destruction, declares Yah Zavot. Yah Zavot has sworn, saying, truly, as I have planned, so shall it be. And as I have purposed, so it stands. So it shall arise. His plan is already a plan. It's already there. He's not wondering what he should do next. He's not wondering if somebody's going to do what he prophesied in the Old Testament and the New Testament. He wasn't wondering if it was going to really happen. Though there's more under those words than that. It's a somewhat fair assessment. So we see that the enemy wants to raise his throne above the stars of El, sit in the mount of appointment. He said in his heart, let me be like El. And that's the place he would like to get each and every one of us, to keep us from being fully submitted. Submit to Yah and resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. Total and full submission to Yah. requires fear, requires us to be humble. So let's go look at this sneaky cat over here in Matthew 4. You can see the verses 1 through 11. This similar, well, the same account, given just a little bit differently, is also in Luke chapter 4, but we're going to read it out of Matthew. That's what I have. And Yahusha was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. And after having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. He was emptied. And the trier came and said to him, "If you are the Son of Elohim, command that these stones become bread." But he answering said, "It has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yah." Are we hungry to feed our flesh because we've emptied ourselves? Have we even emptied ourselves? But are we wanting to feed our flesh as opposed to feeding on every word that was breathed by Yah Elohim? This is not just about taking in physical food. Was it about physical food? Absolutely. Did he have the power? Hey, you could do whatever you want. You could turn these stones into bread. You can feed your flesh. And then, and who are you anyway? Are you really the Son of Elohim? What are we hungry for? Yahusha said when they came to bring him food, "I have food to eat that you do not know, and it is to do the will of Yah Elohim." What is our desire? That comes in many forms that he brings that. And we're not fighting the flesh and blood that he brings it in. Do we have a battle between flesh and spirit going on in us? Yes. But it's because the enemy, the devil, what have you to call him, comes knocking at the door, and our flesh takes off. Submit to Yah, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Then the devil took him up to the set-apart city, set him on the edge of the set-apart place, and said to him, "If you are the Son of Elohim, throw yourself down." Once again, if you are the Son of Elohim, if you're really that which he breathed, and have the fullness of Elohim inside of you bodily, and you're the word that he's wrapped himself in flesh. If you're that, if you truly are what Elohim breathed, throw yourself down. Nowhere in Scripture does it say to throw yourself down. For it has been written, "He shall command his messengers concerning you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, so that you do not dash your foot against a stone." Yahusha said to him, "It has also been written, you shall not try Yah, your Elohim." Pretty self-explanatory. Are we going to sin so that grace may abound? Are we going to come against what the word has said? Now, and the enemy will come and he'll say, "Well, see this piece, and the rest is all Scripture." Sometimes he may be bringing the fullness of Scripture, But the context, he may repeat exactly. I don't think we see it. We don't see it in this account. We see it somewhere else. We're going to look later. But sometimes he can bring a full scripture, but it can be out of context. Again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain, and showed him all the reigns of the world and their esteem, and said to him, all these I shall give to you, if you fall down and worship me. Then Yahusha said to him, go, Hasatan, for it has been written, you shall worship Yah your Elohim, and him alone. And him alone you shall serve. Pardon me. Nothing of this world that he can offer you should cause you to fall down and worship him in any way. Resist the devil. Submit to Yah. First submit to Yah. Resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. Because it's all Yah's in the end anyway. He knows what he has already planned. It's already in place. Don't let him trick you thinking he can offer you something permanent. He cannot offer you something permanent except for eternal death. He can offer you that. Then the devil left him, and see, messengers came and attended him. So he left him for an opportune time. And we'll just leave it at that. He left him for an opportune time. So if you resist the enemy, if you submit to Yah and resist the enemy, and he will flee from you, he's going to look for another time. He's still looking for the opportune time to come back and cause you to follow what he has twisted, as opposed to what Yah has breathed from the very beginning. 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 4. As to the coming of our Master, Yahusha Messiah, and our gathering together to him. First resurrection. We're still on the path for the first resurrection in order to be gathered to Yah who came to rescue us, the one and only Master, the Messiah, the anointed King of Kings, the anointed greatest prophet that originally planted the seed into all the world, and the anointed high priest who was the first one to sacrifice in the garden. He is Messiah, and our gathering together to him in the reign of his word, the reign of that which he breathed, the Torah. The Torah will reign. The instructions will reign. What he breathed will reign. We ask you, brothers, not to be easily unsettled in mind or troubled, either by spirit. Test them. Submit to Yah. Hold to what is good. Resist the enemy. Hold to that which is in its proper order. or by word. By a word that seems to be the truth, but it's just a little bit off. Maybe it's a whole bunch off. It comes in all different flavors and colors. He's got all kinds of tricks up his sleeve, per se. Or by letter, as if it is from us, as if the day of Yah has come. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction. We see the son of Elohim and the son of destruction. These are seeds. I will put enmity between your seed and her seed, which was what he breathed. It's all about the word that was breathed. Does that negate the fact that they were entities? No. Like I said, who came to Job? A word came, or who came? Yeah, who came to Job? Who went to Yah in Job's day? Hey, word, what are you doing? You want to go try him? Yeah, go give him boils. Hey, mindset. It's not about a mindset. It is about a word, but there's something behind that. There's a principality that wants to be the head, that is working to get you to want the same thing he wants. Because if he can get you to want that in any area of his life, of your life, that is a spirit of anti-Messiah and not submitting to him. Because why? Who opposes and exalts themselves, because the enemy's working through. There's an anti-Messiah spirit been rampant since, I don't know, the beginning when he fell. Well, I do know. The beginning when he fell. He's wanted to exalt himself to that point since then. He's still trying, and it is impossible. But he's still trying. And he wants each and every person that he can to want that same thing with a word that he's put in their head, through using another person to speak it. I mean, there's a plethora of anti-Messiah spirit going on out there. And some of it's so crafty and so woven into our everyday fabric, even in keeping of the commands. Not in the keeping of the commands. Let me not say it that way. But you're keeping this command and this command, but yet you're not submitted here or here. And you've had the seed planted. All right. Who opposes and exalts themselves, they exalt themselves above all that is called Elohim, because they're not submitted to Elohim. They haven't resisted the devil. Or that is worshipped, so that he or they sit as Elohim in the dwelling place of Elohim. They speak into your lives, even pretending to be Elohim, showing himself through them that he is, that they are Elohim, and have exalted themselves, has exalted himself, is trying to do so above the plan of Elohim for all the earth. We get that on the overlying level from D-Wave and CERN. We see that all the time in the propaganda. We see that all the time in what they're trying to feed us, even physically, as food. Even though we should be desiring the word of Elohim, it's not that we don't need to eat, but we see it coming in every form. They are exalting themselves as Elohim and taking people on a road to destruction and a road to death, here and now, and then and there. Okay. Let's see what we got next. So, who's supposed to be the head? I mean, that is a rhetorical question. Let's look at the head from the beginning. And who was the head? And who were to be submitted to? You can't submit to something if you're not humble enough to submit to it. In the beginning, there's our word, H7225, Elohim created the Shemayim and the Eretz, the heaven and the earth, with everything from the El to the Ta in its proper order. Again, we see our word, H7225. Comes from the same thing as 7218. We're in the same root line. We're at the same word. We're talking about the same thing. Is it the beginning? Kind of to us when he created it. Was it the beginning? Yeah, it was the beginning. Who was the head? Okay, so the bait, lots of times, well, no, not lots of times, we do see that it reads Bereshit. There's a bait on the beginning. But that bait isn't on the beginning. The bait was added as a prefix for us to get the word in. So really your scriptures start out with the head. The head Elohim. In the beginning, the head. Beginning with the head Elohim, the heavens and the earth were created with everything from the El to the Ta in its proper order. He is the head. He is the top of the body. He is the person in authority. He is the one who created, and no one's ever going to create like he created. They're going to have to come at it from an artificial measure. Again, we see D-Wave and CERN, same thing. We see it with the GMOs. We've got a whole plethora of examples in our world of the enemy trying to create or do something different than what Yah has originally created. And he's never going to be Yah. He wants to be like Yah. He wants to be Yah. But he's never going to be Yah. So in the beginning, the head, the top in authority, the leader, the one who determines the inheritor, the one who determines who will be betrothed and who his bride will be, he created. He put the word in its order. He breathed the seed. And the seed was everything, every piece, part, and conglomerate of him. Psalm 119, 160. The sum, H7218, of your word is truth, and all your righteous right rulings are forever. Because everything's going to be ruled by the word of truth. Because no lie is of the truth. And that truth is everything from the El to the Ta in its proper order that causes his likeness to continue. But we read this, which is not what the enemy is doing. He is not causing the likeness of El to continue in any way, shape, or form. So we have this sum H7218. Here it is. It's not the sum. It's the beginning. The head. You are the truth. You are the word. Everything you breathed is truth. The head, you, as our authority, as our leader, you are the truth. Because you are what you breathed. You are everything from the El to the Ta in its proper order. No lie is of the truth. So that's who the head is. And the head, the Rosh, the head, El himself, was at the very beginning, pressing everything in its perfect order in truth. Resh El Shin. I wasn't going to do that. Okay. So, we just saw he was the head in the beginning. Wait. It says right there in the end, the top of the body. Well, let's see. The head of the body. How many heads does a body have? How many bodies does a head have? A body does not have two heads. A body does not have a big head and a little head. He's not passing the baton to another entity, per se, in the Son of Elohim. The devil, the enemy, Hasatan, whatever, however you need to frame that, is not the head of the body of Messiah. We have to resist that. All the things that are of him, we have to resist, of the enemy. Let's go to Colossians 1, 9 through 23. Oh yeah, I want to just, let's go to verse 5. I'd love to read the whole chapter. Because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the Shemaim, because your hope is that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life, of which you heard before, in the word of truth. Where was the word of truth? It was in the very beginning. Of the good news, which has come to you, as also in all the world. It is bearing fruit. The word of truth is bearing fruit, and the fruit that it's bearing will remain. What is the fruit? What is the fruit of your lips? Is it that which comes from the head, that you're part of the body? Have you resisted that other word? Because just as you're not fighting flesh and blood, the next guy down the road isn't fighting flesh and blood either. So we must be speaking that which is of the word of truth, and everything that's in its proper order, so the next set apart one doesn't have to fight that enemy. We need to be fully submitted to Yah. As also in all the world it is bearing fruit and growing. As also among you, since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim in truth. The favor of Elohim, the grace of Elohim, doesn't come from a lie. It comes from returning to the truth. As you also learned from Epaphras, our beloved fellow servant, who is a true servant of Messiah. He serves him in truth on your behalf. Who also declared to us your love in the Spirit. Here's where I wanted to start. That is also why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire. Are we praying and asking Yah that the set apart ones be filled with everything that was breathed from the mouth of Yah, and not that which would feed the flesh? Not that we don't ask that people's needs be provided for, but what's the ultimate end goal for us in the end? That they would be filled with the knowledge, the intimacy, the desire to be intimate with Yah in the wisdom which he breathed, which was there with him from the very beginning, Proverbs 9, and spiritual understanding, having put on the mind of Messiah, which comes from the seed that's planted in their heart, because the carnal mind cannot discern spiritual matters. To walk worthily of the Master. How many masters do we have that we are following? Do I know that Paul said, let me not say that. Spit that out. You guys know how I am. Paul said, follow me as I follow Messiah. Okay, but is Paul your quote-unquote capital M master? No. Messiah is your master. Walk the way that he walked. There is one capital M master. Pleasing, how did he walk? In truth. Pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, being empowered with all power according to the might of his esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy. In this we must endure until the end, submitting to Yah and resisting the devil, because the game isn't over. The enemy's game, let me rephrase that, the enemy's game isn't over until Yah says it's over. Giving thanks to the Father, who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in the light. The inheritance of the Father at the first resurrection is the priesthood. The inheritance of the priesthood is Yah, and to be his bride. That should be our goal. Who has delivered us from the authority of darkness. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the principality with authority and the world rulers of darkness of this age. Of this age. Darkness. We wrestle with darkness that comes from the devil in this age. And transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love. This is not a separate entity that he has passed the reign to. He has transferred us in to the reign of the Torah, the reign of the Word in our lives, the being able to fully submit to Yah in truth and resist the devil. The Word reigns in our lives, and it will reign on the earth, in whom we have redemption through his blood. Whose blood? Yah's blood. He wrapped himself in this flesh and walked it out as the fullness of Elohim. That flesh was the fullness of Elohim bodily. It was what he breathed, which was piece, part, and conglomerate of him. He was well pleased to wrap himself in that and walk that out to show us how and to save his bride. Acts 20:28, you can see whose blood it was. There's a couple other places. The forgiveness of sins. Who is the likeness, everything from the El to the Tau, of the invisible Elohim in its perfect order. The firstborn of all creation. His word is what came forth, is what was born at quote unquote born. That's the word we got there. He was the firstborn of all creation. Because in him were created all that are in the Shemayim. In who? We saw it at the beginning, in the head. The head. We've got one head. Because in him, by him, through him, for him, because of him, came from him, every piece, part, and conglomerate of him. No, I'm not saying the tree is Elohim. Because in him were created all that are in the Shemayim and all that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities. They were all created by him to be in perfect order, to work in shalom, to be submitted to him and him alone, from whence comes the mastery of shalom in one's life. All have been created through him and for him. And he is before all. We saw that in the Genesis. He is before all. And in him all hold together. And he is the head of the body. One head, one resh, from the beginning, the head of the assembly, who is the body. There's one body of Messiah, who is the beginning. He was the beginning. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. Okay, now we're looking at he died of the flesh, and he was the firstborn from the flesh that died, that could, because the word did not return void, that he might become, no, he exists, to show us that he exists as the one who is first in all. He always has, and he always will. Because in him all the completeness of Elohim was pleased to dwell. In the perfection of his word and the walking out that which he breathed, Elohim is pleased to dwell in that which was able to walk it out and not return void. If he can be more than one place at a time. If he can't, we've got issues. And through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself. Unto who? Who were we being restored to? Who was in the beginning? Who was at the mount? Who, for the people that sinned at the foot of the mount? Who were we being restored to? Whether on the earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. And you who were once estranged and enemies in the mind by wicked works, but now he has completely restored to favor. Because what's in your heart dictates what you think, therefore dictates what you do. Back to 21. And you, who once were estranged and enemies in mind by wicked works, but now he has completely restored to favor, in the body of his flesh, through death, to present you set apart and blameless and unreprovable before him. Because you are following that which he has laid out in its perfect order. There is a pattern to what he laid out. There is a design to what he laid out. And the enemy has come to disrupt the design and disrupt the pattern that Yah has laid out for his bride to submit to him. If indeed you continue in the belief which is an action, founded and steadfast, and are not moved by the trickery, the schemes, the wiles, and the craftiness of the enemy, away from that hope, the good news which you have heard, which was proclaimed to every creature under the heaven, of which I, Shaul, became a servant. We see who the head of the body is. Wow. Let's move on. So I want to go back to the place where we trace this word back to, because we just kind of left it hanging there, and I don't like to leave stuff just hanging there. So I want to go back to it and take a look at it and see if we don't see a picture of this. I understand it's coming out through people. It's going to come out through people. He's after us. Genesis 10, 8 to 12. Okay. Let me look at something here. Okay. All right. Genesis 10, 8 to 12. That's good and cold. This is about the sons of Ham. And Cush brought forth Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter, one who sits in ambush before Yah. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yah. At the beginning, he was the head of his reign here on the earth. Was Babel. He was the head of Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Ashur and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Kilah. Well, no wonder Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. And Rezin, between Nineveh and Kilah, the great city. It's not a good thing to have someone say, hey, you Nimrod. We'll go to 11, Genesis 11, 1 through 9. And all the earth had one language and one speech. There was one. It was the Eld of the Taw. Am I saying it was all in its proper order? Well, it couldn't have been. But it was one language, one speech. And it came to be, as they set out from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. We just saw he was the head of Shinar. And they dwelt there. He was reigning there. And they said to each other, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone. These were not living stones. The living stones of Yah do not desire to make a name for themselves. And they had asphalt for mortar. By the blood of other people, they do not search and seek to make a name for themselves, but their goal is to build the house of Yah. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. They were supposed to be covering the face of the earth. Absolute opposite of what El said. And he certainly didn't tell them to make a name for themselves. Our boast should be in Yah, and Yah alone. And then Yah came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yah said, look, they are one people, and they have one language, and this is what they begin to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us, well, let's just go look. I'm not going to get off on this tangent, but we'll go look. Genesis 11. Go. Let us go down. See this us here? Oh, I don't have it on this one. 11. Go. Go down. There's no us in there. May there be a prefix or a suffix that alludes to an us? Okay. Yah's coming down to see what's going on. Not that he didn't know what's going on. And we have the word confuse here. He's not the author of confusion. But if you're not doing what he said with what he gave you, it's going to flow to nothing. This is a flowing to nothing. He caused to flow to nothing their language, so that they did not understand one another's speech. Was it confusing for them? Okay. And Yah scattered them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. The city was unfinished. If you are building something for yourself, it will never be finished. That is why the name of it was called Babel, because there Yah caused to flow to nothing the language of all the earth, and from there Yah scattered them over all the face of the earth. Yah is the head. Submit to Yah and resist the enemy, and he will flee from you. The head wants you to think. The head that wants to be the head. The devil, who is spreading his seed, wants you to want what he wants, because he knows that's what's going to keep you from Elohim, is wanting to be the head and wanting to lift yourself above El and wanting to sit in the seat of Elohim as Elohim. Second Corinthians 6:14-18. The time is now to leave Babylon. Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. You're supposed to be yoked and submissive to El as the lead ox in the yoke, not with someone who is in the yoke of bondage being maneuvered by the enemy. For what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? You're not on the same team. Does not negate you don't witness to people. This is about being in the yoke of bondage. We must be fully from the yoke of bondage and thinking that we are the lead ox in the yoke. Yah is the lead ox in the yoke. Everything that comes against that, against the instructions that he gave that we are to follow, against the fact that he is the lead ox and we need to submit to everything, to El, and resist the enemy. That's what we need to do. And what has fellowship? What fellowship has light with the darkness? Because the rulers of this age, the principality with the authority, and the army that he's working through, has no fellowship with the light of Messiah. They're not on the same page. When the light comes, darkness flees. When you submit to Yah and resist the darkness flees. And what agreement has Messiah with Belial? That almost feels rhetorical. And what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the dwelling place of Elohim with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Elohim. The seed of the word resides inside of you. He is speaking to you. You are the place into which he speaks and the place from which he speaks. You can have no union with darkness, with unbelievers, with idols, with lawlessness, if you are truly submitted to El. As Elohim has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Who are we a people? Truly, who are we a people of? Therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says Yah, and do not touch what is unclean. Do not even touch that unclean word that comes from the anti-Messiah and the spirit that runs rampant from him through others, or in the air, or in the wind. And I shall receive you. Isn't that what we want? To be received of Yah? And I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me. You shall carry the seed which I breathed to breathe out to others, says Yah Almighty. Do not even touch what is unclean, lest you be moved by it. Ezekiel 28, 1-19. And the word of Yah came to me, saying, Son of man, say to the prince of Zor, Thus said the Master Yah, the head, the first in all, the one in the beginning. Because your heart is lifted up, and you say, I am El, I sit in the seat of Elohim, in the heart of the seas. Whose idea was that? Where did he get that from? Whereas you are a man and not El, though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim. The authority inside of this Prince of Zor wants to be Elohim. He wants to sit in the seat of Elohim. He's not Elohim. Look, are you wiser than Daniel? Has no secret been hidden from you? By your wisdom and your understanding you have made riches for yourself, and gathered gold and silver into your treasuries. Our treasures are supposed to be stored in the Shemaim. By your great wisdom, by your trade, you have increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Okay, we're going to go to that verse 5. By thy great wisdom, great and abundance of wisdom, strength in the wisdom that was given to him. But what kind of wisdom was it? Because the wisdom that he's got here is to lift himself up to be Elohim. That doesn't sound very wise to me. And by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches. So we're going to look at this word traffic. It's right here in the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, 2770N1. It goes to NF1. It's merchandise, goods for trading. The action is trade at the root line. It says it comes from resh, het, traveling. I'll just leave that. So this is an adopted root line. Not going to go a whole lot into that. But as we look through some of these other words in this root line, a traveler selling stories and songs as a talebearer. Just keep that in mind. We talked about the riches and the gold and the silver in the verse above, okay? Has increased thy riches. So here we see riches again. And it's H2428. But as we look in the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, it's at 1173MN. The N is a het, a yod, and a lam. Has several definitions. One can be a wall, what is bored through by the enemy to enter a city. 2 can be an army, what bores through the wall. 3 can be pain, spinning or piercing pain. 4 is power, the strength and wealth of a person or an army. We saw in the verse above that he made riches for himself. He gathered it into his treasury. By your great wisdom, by your trade, you have increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Next verse. Therefore, see, I am bringing against you strangers, the ruthless ones of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the loveliness of your wisdom, and they shall profane your splendor. Okay, so as we're looking at, my mouse trying to find its place, as we're looking at this verse, someone's selling you a bill of goods, okay? His heart has been lifted up. Because he has increased in thy power, in thy strength, not only in wealth, but he's also going to war. There's nations going to come against him. Well, who's going to fight? He's not going to sit there by himself and fight. And by thy traffic, by thy words, by thy stories, by, and I know it goes to this word, this whole root line runs together. Hast thou increased thy power, thy army, those who are with him, and thine heart, the authority inside of him is lifted up, because not only does he have the earthly riches of gold and silver in the verse above, but he's got an army with him. And it's, this word is increased, 7235. It's an abundance. It's great strength. It's not necessarily the English word increased. It's an abundance. A strength, a great strength in thine army, and the authority inside of him is lifted up because of this. Down into the pit, verse 8, they shall bring you, and you shall die the death of slain in the heart of the seas. That day's coming. Those kings and those rulers and those who would set themselves as El in the seat of El, because they did not submit to El, and they did not resist the enemy. This is their fate, them and those who are with them. No matter how powerful in strength and numbers that they are, no matter how much gold and silver. We see that in Revelation 22. All of that, and those who are with it and for it, are killed with the sword of his mouth, the word of truth, that which was breathed. Would you still say before him who slays you, I am Elohim? What are you going to do? You're going to say you're Elohim then? You're going to be your own ruler? Whereas you are man and not El, in the hand of him who kills you. You're going to die. He's going to take out everything that is out of order with that which is in order. The death of the uncircumcised you shall die, by the hand of foreigners, for I have spoken, declares the Master Yah. Uncircumcised physically and spiritually, if you're a male, physically. And the word of Yah came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the sovereign of Zor. I'll give you all the reigns and all the kingdoms of the world if you'll just bow down and worship me. Thus said the Master Yah, you were sealing up a pattern, complete in wisdom and perfect in loveliness. You were sealed up. He was sealed up with the pattern. Action is seal to seal something closed. Action is seal, concrete is signet. A document is rolled up and sealed with wet clay. The signet ring of the owner bears the image of a seal and is pressed into the clay. You were sealed up. A pattern. Okay, it's a sum, an amount weighed out. The verb is to measure out by weight. The sum of who he was complete in the wisdom that Yah had designed him for, and perfect in loveliness. Once we're going to go on to read. But there was a way in which Yah seals things up. Everything has its perfect order and its perfect pattern. And boy, this covering cherub, he wasn't Yah, because he wasn't complete in the fullness of the wisdom of Yah. He couldn't have been. He'd have been Yah. He wouldn't have desired to be Yah. But he had something. So I want to look at, we see this root line over here, and we'll go to the E sword. It's H8508. So we'll pull this up in Ezekiel 28:12. And here we have it, 8508. The whole root line is about weigh and measure and a treasure. And so we see the verb in this root line to measure out by weight, a sum measured out, an amount weighed out. So we only see this actual word used twice. Why? Because it's got a feminine ending on it. And let's go look at the main word here, H8505. You can see it right here. We'll look at the verb. H8505. Oh, let's just put it on. Maybe you can see that better. Okay. So, here's what I want to look at right here. Proverbs 16:2. All the ways of man are clean in his own eyes, but Yah weighs the spirit. Yah Commit thy works unto Yah, and thy thoughts shall be established. Submit yourself to Yah. Do what's clean and righteous and holy in His eyes. Test the spirits. Commit your works to Yah, and your plans shall be established. This, he was sealed up. He was sealed up in this pattern to follow what Yah had laid out for him. Complete. H1288EN. Full. Action is to fill. Concrete is first fruits. A conglomeration of ingredients for filling something up. A continuation of segments which fill the whole. Action is speak. Concrete is word. And abstract is continue. He was filled with piece, part, and conglomerate in the wisdom of Yah. He wasn't Yah. He wasn't the fullness of Yah. He didn't have all the wisdom. And he was perfect in this loveliness. What was weighed out for him was perfect in loveliness. Continuing on. He knows the word better than we do. And he knows our past, the nature of the human flesh, and how to move that in order to move us from submitting to Yah, in order to get us to submit to him as opposed to resisting him. He's going to push every button from that which he has to maneuver it, to try to maneuver us. Verse 13. You were in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Of course he was there. This is not speaking of Adam. Every precious stone was your covering. The ruby, the topaz and diamond, the beryl, the shoham, the jasper, the sapphire, turquoise and emerald and gold. The workmanship of your settings and mountings was prepared for you in the day you were created, because he created all authorities, all principalities, all rulerships, to do what he had ordered them to do, to be complete in what he had laid out, that would cause the whole earth to work in perfect shalom. You were the anointed cherub that covered, and I placed you, and you were on the set-apart mountain of Elohim. You walked up and down in the midst of stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. What Yah had laid out in its perfect order had now been twisted. By the greatness of your trade, there's our word again. By the greatness of your trade, you became filled with violence within, and you sinned. Because that which was the authority that he had, that he wanted inside of himself, that wanted to be Elohim, then took out a third of the messengers with him. So I thrust you from the mountain of Elohim, and I destroyed you. O covering cherub from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your loveliness. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. Are we willing to corrupt the order, the wisdom, the L to the Ta, every piece, part, and conglomerate, the Yah has breathed and put in the manner that it's supposed to be for our splendor, because that's what he did, and that's what he wants us to do. I threw you to the earth. I laid you before sovereigns to look at you. He's going to lay him before sovereigns to look at him. And actually, we're going to be kings and priests, and we're going to say, is this the one that disrupted the whole earth? You profaned your set-apart places by your many crookednesses, by the unrighteousness of your trading. Right there. Of your trading. Someone selling you a bill of goods in unrighteousness, because they're trying to lift themselves up and make themselves as Elohim and sit in the place of Elohim. And it's not that we don't speak correction, reproof, encouragement to our brethren, but it's got to be from a place of not wanting to sit in the place of Elohim, but for the love of Elohim, for the fact we are submitted to Elohim, for the fact that we truly and fully fear Elohim. Therefore, I brought forth fire from your midst. It has devoured you, and I will turn you into ashes upon the earth before all the eyes who see you. This unrighteousness is going to devour the unrighteous. All who knew you among the peoples will be astonished at you. Waste you shall be, and cease to be forever. Okay. Hebrews 2:13-18. It's just 14. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, we're made of flesh and blood. That is correct. We fight our flesh. Internally, we fight spirit and flesh. Externally, we don't fight flesh, unless we're having a sword fight, I guess. He himself similarly shared in the same. He wrapped himself in flesh, so that by the means of his death, because he walked it out in obedience, the fullness of Elohim was wrapped in the flesh, which was the word that was able to walk it out perfectly, because it was the perfect order of the word, so that it would not return void, so that by means of his death we might destroy him, by being able to follow that which he did. By having one that was firstborn from the dead, that was the firstborn from creation, which was the word that was originally breathed. He himself he is a noun. Yah is a noun, but it has an action behind it. Let me start again. I think I got off there. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself similarly shared in the same, so that by means of his death he might destroy him having the power of death, that is, the devil. This power of death that the devil has is the fact, if you trace this word power back, that he knows the weapon and is able to maneuver us in such a manner by our past, and by knowing the fleshly nature, and by knowing quite a bit about what Yah breathed and the order it should be in. He's not Yah, so he doesn't know it all. But he knows that weapon, and that gives him the power to maneuver us in such a way, unless we are fully submitted to Yah and resisting the devil, to maneuver us in such a way that we come to eternal death. And that's what Yah came to destroy. So that the word that he breathed did not return void, and to show us how to walk that out as sons of obedience, and to be in the perfect order submitted to Yah as our head, and not ourselves, and not the enemy, and resisting that the enemy would tell us to sit as Elohim in our own lives, as in the lives of others. Not that we don't speak the word again in encouragement and reproof and correction. But there's a place and there's a spirit from which it comes, which is in meekness and respect, as opposed to a self-glorifying, I am Elohim manner. And deliver those who throughout life were held in slavery by fear of death. For doubtless he does not take hold of messengers, but he does take hold of the seed of Abraham. Has he got a hold of you? So that in every way he had to be made like his brothers, wrapped in flesh, in order to become a compassionate and trustworthy high priest in matters related to El. The very first high priest, the one and only high priest, true high priest, sacrificed in the garden in matters related to himself, to make atonement for the sins of the people, Acts 20:28. For in what he had suffered, himself being tried, he is able to help those who are tried. Because the word that he wrapped himself in, the fullness of Elohim bodily that wrapped himself in flesh, the word which he breathed, did not return void. So just to summarize a little bit, because I'm going to stop here and do the rest of it in another part. The enemy, on a high overview level, say some things that aren't necessarily in the scripture here, that we see in life. The enemy on a high overview level, through D-Wave, through CERN, trickling down to Google, Amazon, Facebook, cryptocurrency, uses random number generation to combinatorially optimize a situation to have the most probabilistic outcome in their favor. Same thing that's done through propaganda. Propaganda uses past and the human fleshly desires to combinatorially optimize, to take all of that and package it up in the best possible manner that will work in order to move the people in a direction they want them to move, because they've spent some time combinatorially optimizing things that will dumb them down. So it is on a personal level in our lives. The power of the enemy works because he's intimate with, well, let me not say that. Spit that out of my mouth. Because he knows the weapon. He knows the word, because he had peace part conglomerate of him as a covering cherub. And on a personal level, we're not fighting flesh and blood, but the principality that is behind that in our own lives and in other people. In our own lives, he is taking that which is of our past and that which is of the human nature, and he's combinatorially optimizing everything that he can, coming up with the best possible solution, probabilistic outcome, to get us to move into a state where we would be locked into eternal death as opposed to eternal life. he's got his hands already on and a hold of those that are quote unquote Satanists, those that are quote unquote Luciferians, those that are down at the bar, every weekend hooting, and you guys know what I mean. I don't need to explain that to you. But when he comes to people, he's looking to get those last elect few that he can, that might come to the intimate knowledge of Messiah through what he breathed. He's looking for those because his time is short. And those are the ones that he's, not that he doesn't want to keep everybody else away from eternal death, but he's looking for the ones that would come to that intimate knowledge to hurt you, to scatter you, because he wants to sit as Elohim in the throne of Elohim. If you are seeking to be intimate with him and you are seeking the language of Yah, give yourself to no man. Be so familiar with the truth that when the counterfeit looms on the horizon, you recognize it immediately. Because as we're going to see in the next part, and we saw it in this part, the enemy came to Yah himself with his very own word. He doesn't know it better than Yah, but how many people does he know it better than on a level that people don't even understand? We're going to see in the next part where he comes to you with the truth, fully out of context, but you don't recognize it because you're not familiar with the word. Let me say, we don't recognize it. It's not like he doesn't try to pull the same stuff on me. It hasn't. We need to be so familiar and intimate and submitted in fear and humility to Yah Elohim that we are able to recognize him misusing what should be our weapon, the sword of the Spirit. We should recognize the misuse of that immediately. Submit to Yah and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. We thank you, Father, for I ask Yah that you would open each and every one of our eyes, Yah, to the place in our lives, Father, where the enemy is residing, where the enemy is attempting to come in, where he's attempting to maneuver us in a direction, Father, using your word, Father, using your language, Yah. That those, Father, that you have chosen to be elect, Father, would be warriors. It is not possible for them to be deceived. That you would give them a warring spirit under Yah's vote, an army. For a soldier in an army does not worry about the things of this world, in order that he might please his master who enlisted him. Father, let us be pleasing you in each and every thing that we say and that we do. In your name, Yah, who came to rescue us. Hallelujah. Praise Yah.